A woman on the train was about to go to the bathroom when she was shocked to find that the car with the toilet had disappeared, and she rushed to tell the steward. The steward was shocked to see the back of the train empty, but she had to play it cool and lie to the passengers that there was no carriage behind her. But as more and more people tried to go to the restroom, everyone noticed something was wrong. One passenger asked the attendant why he lied when two of his friends were sitting in the last compartment. Number 5. Seeing that it was about to be impossible to hide it, the stewardess had to tell everyone that due to the sudden failure of the No. 5 car, so it was left in the tunnel and calm the passengers not to panic. He now immediately reported it to the police to send someone to repair it and will join us after it was done. Afterwards, the steward went to check the cable and found that it was full of weeds and sticky liquid, as if it hadn't been cleaned for years. When he was puzzled, he suddenly saw the disappearing passengers from compartment 5 on the glass, and they all became extremely weird and scary. Suddenly he had a bad feeling in his heart and told the conductor about it. The conductor was shocked to see the disappearing cars because each car could not be separated until he manually entered the code. Otherwise it would be impossible to cut it off by any external force. He checked the surveillance of the No. 5 car and found that it had turned into a mosaic when it passed through the tunnel last time. So the car must have met an accident inside the tunnel. The conductor ordered the crew not to tell the passengers in order to avoid panic. At the same time, the train slowly entered a long tunnel again, and it was during this process that the passengers in car 4 finally realized what had happened to car 5. A ghostly cry and a strange laugh came from nowhere. Then a passenger was suddenly strangled by a mysterious force, and the more she struggled, the tighter she was pulled. The passenger next to her tried to help, but the next moment he was also strangled, and more people in the train showed strange symptoms and kept talking gibberish before they died. A photographer took out his camera to record the scene, but instead he captured a horrifying scene of a vine-covered demon emerging from above the train. The girl in the back of car 3 saw the horrific scene in car 4 where all the passengers were twisted and turned by the evil spirit until they were tortured to death. Car 4 was completely detached from the main body of the train the second before it exited the tunnel. The people in car number 3 heard the girl screaming and didn't understand what was happening, but the girl who witnessed it all finally realized the truth of the disappearance of the car. She deduced that every time the train passed through the tunnel, it attracted an evil spirit that would consume each passenger one by one until all the cars disappeared, which means that when the train passes through the tunnel, the people in compartment 3 will also die. But car 2 is full of rich people who pay a lot of money for their tickets, and they're not going to be happy about people from the regular cars just wandering in. And the first class compartments are filled with the rich and powerful of the upper class, who will not allow ordinary people to enter, torturing them to death until the train leaves the tunnel. The last car stays there forever with its dead passengers. Soon there were only 3 cars left in the long train that was still speeding along, and one of the passengers who knew the truth sneaked into the number 2 business car but was disliked by the rich people. Luckily, no one here knows what's going on in the next few cars until the train enters the tunnel again, and a horrible evil spirit suddenly appears above compartment 3, and people are instantly possessed by the spirit. The screams attracted the attention of the passengers in car number 2, who watched in horror as the bloodshed in car number 3 separated from the main body of the train before the train pulled out of the tunnel. The passengers of car 2 finally realized that the next time they entered the tunnel, it would be their turn, and they called for an emergency brake. It was only then that the staff told them the truth, that a circuit had been damaged a long time ago and that the train had already gone out of control. So they all tried to get into the first-class cabin, but the rich man in the first-class cabin came over to stop them and said, "You inferior people don't deserve to share the resources with us." When the passengers saw that the tunnel was about to re-enter not far away, they panicked, but the tycoon closed the door of the first-class cabin coldly before they could panic, and the evil spirits reappeared in the darkness. Luckily, a few lucky people hid in the aisle and were saved from death, but the conductor was kind enough to pull them into the first-class cabin. As the train pulled out of the tunnel, only the cockpit and first class remained. It was already dark outside, and if we entered the tunnel again, the rest of us would still be dead. The conductor took a chance and tried the emergency brake, but the train stopped. The people thought that as long as they didn't enter the tunnel, they would be immune to death. But the evil spirits didn't only appear in the tunnel, but only in the darkness. As night fell, the evil spirit was no longer an obstacle. It spread its branches and covered all the passengers, wrapping them in its vines and torturing them to death. In the end, all the dead became feeding material for the evil spirit, and the ordinary passengers died without realizing how innocent their deaths had been. It turns out that the railroad was developed by the rich and powerful of the first class. This area was originally a virgin forest, but the tycoons insisted on creating a railroad to develop tourism for their own benefit. The local natives told the tycoons that there is an evil spirit in this forest, and if anyone destroys the spirit's environment, they will be retaliated against. But these rich people didn't listen. Not only did they cut down the trees and destroy the ecosystem, they even killed a lot of animals living in the forest. On the first day of the train's operation, the evil spirit took revenge and turned a tourist train into a bloody train. And that's what happens when you destroy nature.